Hey everybody, this is M, the editor for this episode. Just wanted to let you know that we had some audio difficulties. Gino's computer was having trouble, so he had to record from his phone. So he's going to sound pretty crunchy this episode, but he should be all set for next time. So hopefully it'll just be a one-off, and if you bear with us for this episode, that would be great. Enjoy the show.
Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on, now crank this motherfucker up. Break it down like this.
Hello, Internet. Gino, that Guido Greco here again with another episode of Deep Listens. And today we are going to have one of the most final of Final Fantasy podcasts because the game we're covering is dead. That's right, dead. We are covering Final Fantasy First Soldier. The First Soldier? The phone game. The phone game that everyone remembers because one of the people who knew about it is going to jail. So we played this game in its dying moments. We captured its last breaths, and we're here to render a verdict on whether it was a piece of shit or not. And so joining me, as always, to discuss all things Final Fantasy, Chris ZombiePie Redacted. Hello.
Yes. Me and Gino talking about our opinions about Final Fantasy products. There are a few things in any person's life as dependable and supportive as us talking about Final Fantasy. We're maybe, I don't know, second to the male cotton brief.
Yes. And I've got to say, if one more person says that it's your thing covering Final Fantasy stuff, I'm going to become Joker-fied. But it's fine. It's fine. Also joining us to discuss this game and has been joining us on all Final Fantasy endeavors for the last several years, Jeff Rude. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, I'm here, and I'm finally able to talk about how fantastic this experience was on my handheld device. Which is to say,
yes, your handheld
not
phone.
very.
We played. All right. Well, before we discuss Final Fantasy First Soldier, I'll do the plugs first, and then ZP, if you're going to horrify us with food, you need to let me know after that, okay?
Okay, I can wait.
Okay.
I'm a patient boy. I'm not impulsive in any way, shape, or form.
Excellent. I like this new structure we have in our Final Fantasy show. This is going to go great. All right, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast at gmail.com. You can also support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. And also, if you're in a position to do so, please do donate to the National Network of Abortion Funds. Reproductive health is still under threat in the U.S., and folks still need help with that sort of thing. So if you're in a position to do so, please do donate. I also did not mention if I sound weird today, it's because my computer, I touched it and I had static electricity in my finger, and now I think the power supply's blown. So I'm recording this on my phone. So the audio quality might be a little different. The options were, do this or not have a recording at all. So I apologize for the audio quality, but this is what I got, unfortunately. All right. So ZP, are you going to horrify us with food again? ZP?
He's doing the scariest thing of all.
I did the thing that I always do, which is I hit the mute button, and then I forgot, as I was talking long verbose sentences, that I had not hit the unmute button. This is a professional production here. So I left for a bit because Gina was like, I need to make tea for a person that I care for. And I was like, you know what? That sounds good. And I got tea as a gift, and I have not tried this tea. And partially because this type of tea that's got all the weird asterisks next to its statement because it has not been tested by the FDA or proven by any medical establishment. Usually I stay away from this hokum. But this is Yogi Comforting Chamomile, caffeine-free. Soothes mild tension, asterisk, not tested by the FDA. Product of East West Tea Company, LLC, Eugene, Oregon. Hey,
They're based up there. Or down there, I should say.
Is that are they like a Tillamook? Are they a well-known company that lives there?
Yeah, they're pretty.
They're a well-known company.
Yeah, Yogi teas are pretty widely
I
distributed.
stay away from anything that makes any purported statements about medical claims that are not true. So I've never bought a product of theirs.
I've had a lot of their teas because my mom has gotten them. They're just fine teas. I don't really care about the medical claims. Like chamomile tea is pleasant. Licorice tea is pleasant. It does settle your stomach.
Not to make a big stink about this, I feel like you cannot divorce yourself from the supplement industry with stuff like this in a way that is ethical, or there's no ethical consumption of these products when they make these claims. Anyways, chamomile, caffeine free. It's going to ease my tension because we're about to talk about a bad game. Spoilers, so maybe I need to ease my tension. I'm just going to say this in terms of how I did this, how I made this tea. I put the tea bag in a cup of water, then I put the entire product into a microwave, set it for 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and now I have this cup of tea. I know that for many people, using the microwave in this manner is disgusting. I don't care. Let's drink this. That has virtually no flavor.
I don't really how long has it been steeping?
Like 4 minutes.
Yeah, your herbal teas tend to steep for like quite a while.
Really?
Yeah,
and
like 8.
How hot did it boil?
Like 3.5 minutes in a microwave.
Okay, yeah, that should hopefully get it to a boil. So,
all right. Well, I hate to break it to you, Gino, but if Jeff's review or assessment is true, then maybe put a shot clock here. Put a shot clock for 20 minutes from now, and we'll get the actual review.
Okay, let's just agree. Once you describe why a Square Enix affiliated person is going to jail, that's when you know you should check the tea.
Okay. All right.
So the first soldier.
Yes.
Who wants to explain what the hell this is?
I think I'm the least qualified, so I could do that.
Excellent. You do it.
Okay. I'll tell you this. I have written notes here, so maybe that makes me the most qualified.
I wrote something about this, so I'm moderately qualified.
You did, and people should definitely check that out. Where could they read that, ZP?
On giantbomb.com.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually post an addendum because I'm reading over this blog, and I said allegedly a lot when it came to Yuji Naka.
Yeah.
Let's just say...
no longer necessary.
No longer necessary. This game has been cited in a court of law in Japan.
Yeah. Strange set of circumstances. Final Fantasy VII, The First Soldier, which is the full name of this product as far as I know, was. You can change the Wikipedia to say was officially as of January. A brief-lived, let's say, mobile battle royale experience set in the extended Final Fantasy VII universe. I feel like when you say extended Final Fantasy VII universe, you almost need to qualify that if you're talking about the original extended Final Fantasy VII universe or the remake Final Fantasy VII universe.
This is the second extended Final Fantasy VII universe they've done. They created a second multiverse.
No. I wrote about this, you two. So basically where we're at in terms of Final Fantasy VII is we have two canonical timelines. The one in which the original timeline of Final Fantasy exists, and now we're branching off into the remake timeline. Yeah. Anything that is associated post Final Fantasy VII and comes after or exists prior to that, the term has always been the compilation of Final Fantasy VII.
So this is a compilation, right?
Yeah. I mean,
this is canonically connected to the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. This is not in any way, shape, or form connected to the remake timeline.
Strictly speaking, in terms of the plot, this takes place prior to the events of any other Final Fantasy VII media, I guess.
Exactly.
Including
it would be
Crisis Core?
Anyway. Yeah, this would be before the two splintered off.
Yeah.
Remake and regular anyway.
It was a battle royale. With Final Fantasy VII theming. It had a handful of maps. It had mobile-friendly features. It had mobile-friendly bad features. And then they put a bullet in its head. And right about the time they put a bullet in its head, some things came to light around the circumstances of this game's creation, which are going to wind up putting the Sonic guy in the slammer, potentially, for a moment. So that's like the overriding story here. As far as the game went, I mean, ZP's article kind of gets to the heart of it, but I guess it's probably worth just talking about the experience of playing this thing, because you can't do that anymore. So we've just kind of got memories left.
It cannot be emphasized that, like, the circumstances, even before we get into talking about this game was announced alongside another mobile game for Final Fantasy VII. You could even make the argument that this was a part of a anniversary event prior to the one of 2023, where they celebrated the anniversary of Final Fantasy VII. So it was this. It was the not, the Turks game, but we're totally making a Turks game, mobile game, where they're going to do hand-drawn, cel-shaded art, Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. And then it was also announced alongside the Before Crisis Final Fantasy VII.
Right, they're bringing Before Crisis back.
Ever Crisis. But it's basically Before Crisis in a lot of ways, except apparently it's not going to feature the Turks. It's going to feature a storyline associated with, I don't know,
the pitch of
the
that
details
thing,
for that.
Yeah, it's such a mess, because I think the original pitch was, and this, again, I could very well be wrong here, an abridged retelling of kind of all of the shit. Like, everything is in here, but in sketch form. In a lot of ways, it kind of reminded me of what they did when they sold the original UMD version of Advent Children, where there were two discs. There was a disc with the movie, and there was the disc where they stitched together all of the cutscenes and dialogue sequences from the video games so as that you would know the context for Advent Children, which was a real weird thing to do, but they totally did that. I really need to seek that out.
Now, I mean, it is important to note that prior to Square Enix really doubling down on NFTs and the metaverse, that mobile games were really their bread and butter, even more so than Final Fantasy XIV. And I know that the Final Fantasy XIV people are, we have millions of concurrent viewers and stuff like that. You don't understand. Square Enix, when these games were announced, made an ungodly amount of money on mobile games, gacha games, many of which are still functioning to this day. And I posited this on the write-up for this, that Guess What You Would is the most profitable video game ever associated with Final Fantasy, because it's not what you think. I don't think that Gino has read my write-up, but just guess.
I have, but not in a while. Record Keeper?
Nope.
Is it Mobius?
Nope. It is Final Fantasy 15, A New Empire, because that game has made over $500 million. That game is still...
phone.
That is the phone tower defense tie-in to Final Fantasy 15. That game is not only still going, but it still draws millions of dollars per month. So during this time, during this time when Square Enix was really, really making a lot of gacha games, the context for that was very simple, where it is throw whatever you've got, see what sticks, something like G-Bike, let's shit can that. After 2 days, it completely fell flat on its face. All the bravest, hey, enough people are supporting this to where we can keep it alive for a little bit longer. Mobius is doing okay, but let's see if the PC release helps out the community. No? Okay, shut that shit down. Dissidia Opera Omnia, for some reason people like this game. It's keep going. And, it's been a lot of, throw things on the wall and see what sticks.
Yes, for sure. So this game, it came out, what day did First Soldier actually release?
I have it written right here. It launched November 17th, 2021 on iOS and Android.
Okay, you will notice, dear listener, that this is 2023, so less than 2 years after its release, this game was shit canned.
Yep. I have the exact date. It was January 11th, 2023.
Excellent.
So
yeah, a little bit over a year. Yep. So let's start with just grounding people in what our experience was with the game. Which of us was able to play this game on our phones?
I was.
Raise his hand.
I raised my hand.
I was not. My phone was not capable of playing First Soldier. It was capable of booting. It was capable of pulling down updates. And then as soon as I tried to hit any buttons, it would crash.
So
My phone,
Yeah.
phone that I tried to
Okay.
do this on was a 2022 brand new phone. It was not a high end phone. It was not, a Samsung the latest Samsung Galaxy or something, but it is a modern phone, and I could not even open it. Like, it's not like it ran poorly; it just crashed. So that seems bad to me for a mobile game.
ZP, what
That-
kind of phone
that's-
were you using?
I kind of wrote about this. I am using a non-mainline. I'm using a Samsung A32 5G.
Okay. I am using a Motorola G31. I think it was an unlocked Android phone that I bought for, I think, $180, which is what I do. I buy unlocked Android phones from a big website that sells things. I use them for about 5 years until they just kind of stop working, or I drop them at some point, and then I just
Same.
replace them.
I have been of the opinion if you are spending more than $250 on a phone, go with God, not me.
Spend your money how you will. If you are using your phone for like some incredible work function and need that, okay. I am not in that bucket at all. I use it to read text-based web pages and call people because I'm like 70. So, and yet I got this running on the like low preset, which is a thing that feels weird to me still, that there's like graphical presets in phone games, but it did run.
Okay.
Now, in terms of running, here was my rub beyond, the actual game mechanics stuff. This is a game that in theory runs on phones, which have the advantage of being handheld portable devices, and working on wireless data networks. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm a commuter. I have a pretty long commute. I've groused about for years on this, so I won't get into it. But like, I ride a bus. In riding a bus, I feel like every time my phone transitioned to any new data point, either a Wi-Fi router or a cell tower on my commute, the game would not crash, but it would drop whatever server connectivity it had, which it wouldn't neatly come up from that. It would kind of like boot to main menu and start shit over again. So it was pretty much impossible to do normal matches of this game or even normal like menu navigation outside of anything but basically sitting in like a constantly connected spot, which seems I don't know. I don't play a lot of battle royale style games on my phone. In fact, I play none. So maybe that's normal, but I find it very dumb and didn't enjoy it at all.
Yeah. So I played the game solidly to get to the point to where I think I got my fill. It should also be noted how the formatting for this game works. It is not like Dissidia Opera Omnia, which is maybe the only mobile game positively we've spoken of. Things are broken down into seasons very much like Fortnite. And so this game has a set of characters, recurring cast members. You take control of a soldier candidate in a unique Shinra program, and you're battling it out in theory with 75 other candidates to become a full member of Soldier, although it basically turns into like, you're going to help Shinra do some Shinra things. I'll look at all these monsters. And it exists 30 years before the events of OG Final Fantasy VII. So you see some iconic monuments. I don't know if you, Jeff, saw any iconic characters. There were like hints of it in some cutscenes here and there. The opening cutscene for this game might be the most impressive part of this game.
Yeah.
And the season introductory cutscenes that say, hey, here's the theme for season 2. Those were quite impressive too. I think that having this, and I've talked about this at length elsewhere. I think having time seasons for something like Fortnite is a good design decision. It keeps things fresh, keeps people grounded in the same map, so you don't get too upset that they're pulling the rug from underneath you. However, with First Soldier trying to paint broad vinegar strokes of this ancillary world building in this established IP with a story where we, in theory, know exactly where it is going, this format was awkward. So the first season of the game, which had its introduction where you have all of these fish out of water moments. We missed that because that only took place from November 2021 to February 2022. I played this sometime after that February 2022 cut off.
Same.
And so that first episode, in theory, framed the game's world, introduced the named characters, and themed itself to kind of Moogles. And after that, we were just plunking around in this world, this time without any proper introductions, and the characters are still here. Now, if I'm going to sit here and say I expected an in-depth narrative from a Battle Royale mobile game, like I'm full of shit.
Yeah.
You're lying.
Like,
This game
is
this game is a fun shooty shoot action experience. So obviously, in that regard, right, Jeff, it provided the fun shooty shoot stuff, right?
How did the game control? How did so it's a
even
phone,
before
phone
so even before we get into the phone thing, this game did not make sense as a mobile game because it did not in any way, shape, or form feel like it was designed to be on a mobile platform. So first off, this thing would drain your battery if you could get it to run like crazy.
Yeah.
So I documented this. I would go from like 80 to 90% to like under 50% after about 20 to 30 minutes of playtime. I don't know, Jeff, what your experience was, but this thing was a battery hog.
Yeah, I buy phones primarily based on battery spec, and this one I go for like 4 days without charging this thing, so mine wasn't as dire. But I'd fiddle around with this game for like an hour, and I would have lost about a quarter of battery life again on a phone that I recharge if I'm lazy every 3 or 4 days. So
I even plugged this game into a USB-C cord while running the application and made the mistake of still having Chrome and other applications running in the background. And this game was enough to outstrip the charge that it was getting from a USB-C cord.
Awesome. So you were plugged in and it was outpacing the charge. You were losing net charge. Awesome.
And speaking of which, and this is going to get to something that Jeff and I really need to talk about. If you did play this game, in theory, online, Lord have mercy on your soul if you decided to play this game while on mobile data, because this thing, to its defense, does recommend that you were supposed to play it with Wi-Fi enabled. But let's say that you're trying to play this on a bus. Let's say that you're trying to play this while being mobile. Let's say you're on a commute and it's your turn to not drive. This thing would suck up data like its life depended on it. So in one test, I did 5 online matches, and I noticed that I hit the halfway point after 5 matches on my 30 gigabyte data cap.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I mean,
That-
and so I'm on an unlimited plan, which, twirling my fucking mustache here. But I just really hate caps. They give me like an unnecessary amount of anxiety for how much I actually use data. So not actually a concern for me necessarily, but a
in
lot
theory,
of people
there
are on caps.
I am going to say this. I'm going to say this just as an addendum. There are people who have unlimited plans where after a certain threshold, they will throttle your service on that unlimited plan.
Yeah.
So
like it's a fucked amount of data it's pulling down. Did you A/B test with any other games for this? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, like how
Yes.
bad was it when you did like Opera Omnia or some of the other games?
Opera Omnia was still pretty high, but not nearly to this degree. I would say Opera Omnia was a good quarter of this game.
Yeah.
I think because Opera Omnia did not have massive online lobbies to manage or, juggle. I think that's ultimately the part of this that really makes it an odd mobile game. It is so reliant on you getting a consistent online connection so as that you can have this up to 75 player battle royale experience.
But also what they're asking your mobile data to do is just an order of magnitude higher than an Opera Omnia, right?
Yeah.
Opera Omnia basically needs to tell the server you pressed a button, it did X damage, server comes back and tells you, okay, it went through. right? Like you're basically, it only needs to actually communicate with the server when you press a button, because it is single player, it is turn-based, true turn-based. So it's not even like it's doing, ATB meter stuff where it's charging up. There's no response times. This game is real time. Like, it's probably not 60 frames a second, but 75 people need to communicate their locations every a few times a second.
Yeah. I wonder how much it was polling, basically, is like the point of this. And the answer is probably a lot. It's probably a surprising amount. But it's not really a balm. It's not really a balm to people who are running out of data that wanted to play this game for whatever, like, insane reason. And B, if there were, hey, the elephants in the room, Call of Duty and Fortnite both have mobile offerings that are some of the most popular, highest grossing games on Earth right now. And I would wager that they may be implementing some of the same feature set, maybe a little better in terms of data throughput. Do I know that for a fact? No, and I'm not gonna fucking test it because I didn't really like Fortnite.
Again, the thing is that how awkward of an actual video game this is on a mobile platform.
Yeah.
So
I would like to
Jeff,
start.
How did the game feel to play?
So, what if I told you that this is a game that has, you're expected. So it's a third person shooter, with digital analog sticks. So far, so good. I don't really like those, but the fact is, millions of people are playing games like this now. So we're the weirdos here. That is true. That's okay.
Yes.
I didn't enjoy that. I don't really enjoy that control scheme at all. But whatever. My issue is directly next to that digital, or I guess digital analog stick, I guess that's what you call that, was the fire button. Directly next to it.
Directly above.
Yeah.
Well, actually, even the fire button was longer or larger than the analog stick.
Yeah.
The digital analog
so
stick.
Half the time I'm trying to move,
big giant bullet.
I'm hitting the shoot button in a game where it is somewhat incumbent on you to not be making a lot of fucking noise.
Right. And not only that, there were stealth-based, thief-based job classes where getting the jump on a person is the whole point of the job. And if you hit that shoot button prematurely, you break your stealth and you're just dead.
Yeah. And another question here. So the movement button, did you have 2 analog sticks or 1?
2.
Okay, so you've got 2. So your movement thumb and your shoot thumb are next to each other. So moving and shooting at the same time.
No, they were placed on one on the left, one on the right.
Yeah.
Okay,
so one of these 2 functions of moving or controlling your camera, you can't do while you're shooting, right? One of these 2 functions you are not going to be able to utilize at the time when you're shooting.
I want to, ZP, you'll correct me, but I'm reasonably sure what it worked. There were 2 of them, one on each side. And there was a fire button directly adjacent to both of those.
Yeah.
Okay,
which I guess when you say the
shoot.
dual stick part of this, you couldn't, I guess that makes sense. It's probably normal. Here's the thing is I don't have, again, I've played Fortnite on a controller. I've never played it on a phone. So, this could be totally normal. And, there could be millions of people who are just yeah, no shit. That's, how these things work. I sound like that Alien Resurrection review on GameSpot or whatever. It's just it's insane. They use both analog sticks to move and look. It's crazy. No one will let tilting at windmill shit. But I I don't think I have particularly large thumbs or some shit. And I'm telling you, half the time I was trying to move, I was shooting a gun. Now you can move all of these things on the screen too. So I found a setup that kind of worked better. I don't know, man. I just don't enjoy this mode of game, period.
I obviously had more fun than you, Jeff, and I want to just say that when you got I can count on one hand the number of times when I genuinely felt like I had a full 75 players, and it was always on Saturday at 3 p.m. where people in Japan were at least waking up. It was an utterly mindless video game.
Yeah, auto fire is enabled by default, which I guess also makes sense. I'm complaining about the controls, but honestly, once I'm in game and doing game stuff, it reminded me of the match of PUBG I have played, or the match of Fortnite I've played, just a little more barren.
And the game did a couple of things that I thought were very clever, rather than just throwing you into the fire like COD or
So
PUBG Mobile, where your first couple of matches were clearly up against a handful of bots.
Yeah.
And even though the player cap was set to 75, I'm pretty sure, I don't know, Jeff, if you felt this way, I always felt like it auto-filled slots with bots.
Oh, yeah.
And that was always a godsend, because you always felt like you had opportunities to get nominal EXP, even if you didn't place first.
Yeah.
And the game allowed you to play it with or without auto-aim. I just came to the point where I felt like the auto-aim, while a little gratuitous in some spots, made it just kind of like a rail shooter. It just became a rail shooter for me.
That's where I wound up with it, too. I turned it on. I had it on the first match, just thought it was kind of dopey, turned it off, and realized I was actually kind of having more fun with it on, just because it was less. But like, it got to more of the shooter stuff that I enjoy, I suppose, which is moving and aiming, right? Like, I will say it made getting headshots trivial on motherfuckers when that was on, though. Like, and like, you know, hooray! I was really good at shooting bots in a game that was on baby mode for me for a while.
Yeah, and as someone who has played Brave Exodus and all the Bravest, the EXP growth in this game, the EXP progression was not the worst. There were plenty of avenues for you to get resources without paying money, although obviously it had the same thing that every single one of these games has, where it's like, if you paid us $50 to $100, you get all these resources and currencies. And I want to say on that end, even when I played this game during its final hours, it had what I felt like was a pretty active community. There were some people who I would see just impeccably dressed up in these outfits that I knew for a fact would only be available if you sunk in genuine cash.
Yeah.
So to me, I feel like Square Enix's suggestion that they closed the game because it was never delivering a satisfying experience is a little suspect, because this game had an active community. It's oftentimes said that the power users of a mobile game represent like 0.0001% of a mobile game's user base. However, those power users, whether it's 8 to 18, spend so much money that they single-handedly lift up the entire game and keep the servers on. And I felt like that there were enough of those people that were present during my experience. I don't know how you felt, Jeff.
I mean, yeah, like the games find their audiences, right? Like they're the brutal nature of like mobile games needing to kind of have a certain amount of churn makes them, I think, a little more cutthroat in the way they like have to like force to monetize themselves. But like this game found, I think, it's people, because when I was playing matches, I would see folks in these kind of buck wild outfits, which got me curious and started being, okay, well, how much would I need to actually sweat equity spend or money spend in this to have this cool shit? And I don't have the prices sitting in front of me, but in terms of, you know, I've been playing a little Halo Infinite recently. And looking at the grind and time people would need to put in, or the dollars to spend to like get all of the cool outfit shit in that game, no more egregious than that. It is, in fact, probably a little better deal. So like, I think it's, if you're someone who is just disgusted by the notion of microtransactions in general, like, you know, fair play. I think that ship sailed 10 years ago.
Yeah, we lost that battle years ago. I hate to say it. Like, if I like Sterling, and the fact that she continues to bring up that and say, look, these are anti-consumer economic traps.
Yeah.
I greatly understand that perspective that she has, and I understand why it's important to beat that drum. We lost.
Yeah.
We lost 10 years ago.
And
almost. In
terms of like, I don't think this game did it in a way that was like dishonest. That like, I think that's more of an issue for me. Like when they I think the ones that Stephanie is bang on about are the ones that release and are just like, look how good we are, look how good we're being. And then, you know, a week after the reviews hit, they're just like, so here's our MTX strategy, and we've added our in-game store. Like, that's shitty. Just because, like, no, you should have just been honest about your plans up front in some sense. Like, and like, hey, things pivot, things change. Like, I understand that, but like, that's what this game was always going to be, right? Like, because that's the model for these games on mobile, because that's the model for most mobile multiplayer games, right? This wasn't going to be a premium $20 product ever. So of course it was going to be selling skins and selling coins and that kind of shit. And
So how? Just a question on the skins and the coins and stuff, etc. Could you earn enough coins to actually get stuff? Like in the time you played, were you able to afford any cosmetics? Like what sort?
I mean,
of things?
it would give you the same typical thing of like, oh, you placed here, now you get a box.
Yeah.
Hey, you've been signing in for 4 days in a row. You get a open this box up and see if you get a new job class.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that I want to say about this game is that it gives you all of the different flavors of jobs from the get-go. So you could, in theory, explore your different avenues, because it's not just shooting. You could use melee. You could use stealth. You could be a sniper. I thought the sniper rifle was absolutely complete dog shit trying to aim on that thing.
Hated
but
it.
you know, you do you.
Yeah.
You do you. I also, like, for the same problems that we just listed, I thought that the thief and stealth-based classes were just not good. But it gave you all of the different flavors of the job classes at their most basic forms, and then maybe you could pull randomly. I will just tell you, it was a bit of a bummer when I finally got my loot box, and the job class that I unlocked was an elite sniper rifle class, or sniper rifle-based equipment. I mean, it's the same thing from Dota. Like, if I wanted to pinpoint the minute that we lost this war about microtransaction in this style of game, it was Dota 2. It was Dota 2.
Well,
or maybe even Team Fortress 2.
Yeah. Or like
you really want to push
CS:GO, maybe, but like
maybe,
oddly enough, you could point at Valve and say they actually really broke this at scale. Either one of those three.
I've got some questions here.
Sure.
So first off, what are the class? Like, you keep saying there are classes. Like, what were the classes? What did they actually mean gameplay wise? Like, what were some?
So they crudely, they would emphasize either like melee or ranged fighting is like kind of how they differentiate. There's different, for lack of a better word, limit breaks that probably had a specific name, and God, what would you call them? Like 4th edition D&D. There was like a slow.
There was accessories.
Yeah.
There were materia even. They even had a materia system.
But there were God damn it. Like in Dota, the metaphor is like things are on timers, right? So like the slow timer attacks and the like long timer attacks for these would be
right.
different.
I should stop using the term right. I should stop using the term job. They were called styles. They were basically based off of the outfits rather than your job classes, but they might as well be one of the same.
Yeah.
They would introduce new job classes, but yeah, it was warrior, sorcerer, monk, ranger, ninja, dragoon, machinist or machinist, and trickster. By the time that the game shut down, they were using the typical Final Fantasy 3/5 jobs.
Yeah.
Okay. So
it was not a lot of them. It was not a lot of them, but it was those were the styles. And when you got new outfits, you got different permutations and different items associated with those jobs.
And did Monk run up and punch dudes? Was Thief running around with dagger stabbing people?
In fact, not only that, but they would have passive buffs and abilities. Like I forget what it was, but the Monk had the mana wall ability. The warrior, I know for a fact, had rush, and then siphon slash. So you had different cool abilities here that, again, they did something more than just the bare minimum of circle shoot. You're the last one standing, you win.
Yeah, they were meaningfully differentiated, and I think it's one of the. I think you're correct. I think this is one of the more interesting ideas this game had.
Yeah, and the way that they even differentiated the magic in First Soldier was novel too. Like fire was like it just threw a ball of fire forward. It was difficult to aim at long distances, but if you were up close, it could just do massive gobs of damage. And Like Blizzard could create a wall of ice or shoot projectiles. Thunder created a circle, so you had to time it right. Cure gave you HP. Comet was a little bit better, but it had an area of effective as area of like dropping a comet, and then you had different like abilities like teleport and water. It was actually pretty novel. Novel is the thing. Like they even tried to play around with like status effects. They gave you blind, where you could just completely screw up what people were seeing that you were fighting against. But you had to unlock a lot of those things.
Yeah.
And so you're getting these cosmetics, right? You're opening loot boxes, and you said that the cosmetics, like the loot boxes. So were there cosmetics that were purely cosmetic, and then some that were unlocking classes?
Yeah, there were, for lack of a better word, like accessories that you could staple onto the main. And like when you're starting this game up, you have some kind of stub characters that you're fiddling with for your base player model.
This game also had RPG elements. Like you could gather items and equipment to increase your stats, but you also just subdue monsters. So there was like a PvE element to this game where if you subdue monsters, you strengthen yourself up and you raise your levels.
Yeah, and then there's materia on the maps that you're slotting in for various buffs and abilities too. It had flavor. Like, that had some actual Final Fantasy VII flavor to the thing that made it, like, again, I didn't really like how this game played, or to honest think it's like an incredible thing, but I think there was genuine effort here to do with it. I don't think this was slopped out necessarily. Nor I think it's correct that you've already pointed out, did this just like die on the vine instantly. Like, I don't think it was a rip-roaring success, but found an audience. Like, I didn't hate my time with this game by any stretch of the imagination. I think I just don't like battle royale games on my phone. Generally true. But yeah, I would be lying if I said this was just some garbo poo-poo. Even like to say like it was an egregious like microtransaction thing. Like, I don't even think that's true. But then it died.
It reiterated the norms of the mobile game.
Yeah, it was
that's what it
behaving exactly as other games in this space are doing.
Mm-hmm.
It just had the square. You are more than welcome to be like wary of Square Enix in this very specific space based on their past titles. Like, they have done some very egregious monetization of their mobile products over the years, but this was not that bad. Like, it really was not. And I feel like the things that was letting you buy were actually like, such that I care about buying like a fake hat for my fake man. Like, people like to play dress up in these games, and they let you do that. So, like, I don't know. People were fun.
Playing dress up.
Yeah,
people were definitely playing dress up in this game. And more power to them. Who's to say what you can and can't do with your own money? Hopefully, your money, and you're just using your mom's credit card.
Sure,
but
yeah, but it's dead now.
Yeah. And I think there were two things. We'll get into the main culprit, but I do feel like that there's two basic reasons as to why this game got shut down. One, and this is on Square Enix. Square Enix's mobile division has cratered, and this is partly because gacha games and the market of gacha games, the amount of money development studios were getting out of gacha games is already on the decline. And so I very much can imagine myself being a suit in Square Enix, like, well, shit, this isn't panning out. Let's go back to NFTs. Let's do that shit, right? Oh no, let's sell all of our European studios for basically $0. Let's just shut all these mobile games.
I have like some basic gameplay questions though, before we go to the ramifications of this game dying, because there are many. Sure. So, like, how did you win a match?
You were just the last person standing.
Yeah, it was exactly Battle Royale formula.
It was Battle Royale.
Okay. So it was last person standing, free for all.
It did do the Fortnite. It did do, not the Fortnite. It did do the PUBG thing of it would give you an area where you needed to be.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So it's got a storm or something.
There were also alternate modes and styles of play. So it wasn't just that one mode. It had It had multiple maps too. It had
Yeah.
the Midgar Undercity, the Midgar Plate Side, and then the training center in the Shinra building.
And like,
But
they
yeah,
were
it is-
surprisingly dense maps. I thought.
Yeah,
Like
they had a lot
they
to
had
them.
Terrain may be too strong a word.
You could also play in teams, much like PUBG. There was later they introduced a blitz mode, which was
Blitzball?
blitz mode,
Oh,
and the goal is to control the zones. It was basically King of the Hill.
okay. So they tried to make this game have some more meat on the
Yeah,
bones. It was not
absolutely.
just
They continued
Fortnite.
development work on this game until like they were releasing that last season of stuff. They didn't just punt when they announced that they were shutting this down. Like they kept on doing work here, which fair play to them for like trying to. This is a Michael Pachter-ism for people who don't know who that is. He's like a video games press dude, kind of the video games press dude. They tried to continue to delight their user base by putting shit in this game, some of which was like fan servicey, like there's an event and Zach Fair is in the map now. Like they kept doing stuff, right? They didn't just go, fuck it, we're just closing this. This will be the last season. Everyone have fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Whoever and however many people were working on this game, they genuinely were putting effort into it.
okay.
Like, until the day. I mean, the last week was like a free for all. It's like we're gonna give everything free, go nuts. Like they actually wanted to send the game off.
And I assume there was some sort of like thing that flew over the map. You jumped off and then parachuted down the whole regular PUBG style to begin a map.
How did you get into them? I don't remember this.
I think it was basically like the
Was it like a Zeppelin or like a? It was
no,
just like
yeah,
a
it was like the parachute scene from 7.
Yeah.
And you were scrounging for weapons. You did not have a loadout. So if you were one of these classes, right, like a thief or something, you had to find a knife or a weapon that worked.
Like you start with your melee weapon, if I'm not mistaken. So like I had a sword as a warrior that I could use for like to get up on people and hit with a sword. But all of your your firearms were out there in the map. And there were like differentiated firearms. Like it wasn't just like there was the shotgun and the rifle. There were like a couple different like assault style weapons. Again, like surprising amount of stuff in this thing. Anyway. But yeah, you started with a basic melee weapon.
And the materia, like you were equipping those, the cooldowns were like actual attacks you could use? Like,
they would range from attacks to like static buffs, if I'm not mistaken. And you had, I think like 3 slots for them too.
In some ways, this was a more complicated game than Well,
Absolutely.
Not PUBG with building, but
which again leads to this whole just not understanding why people sometimes play mobile games. You want a simplified, portable version of a game that you will eventually play on a PC or a console. So this game had a lot of fiddly bits that for a mobile game was kind of unheard of.
Okay, so now let's go to the failure, right? So it was a pretty box. It was a little bit more advanced of a battle royale game. Cosmetics, loot boxes, multiple currencies. Use the currencies to get like pure cosmetics. Some things were actually classes that changed the way the game played, but not enough people bought it or played it. And
I genuinely don't think that the user base, the number of users that were associated to this game, had anything to do with it being shut down.
Yeah, for reasons
like I
that
said,
will become apparent.
I think that there are 2 major things that happen. First off, Square kind of poisoned the well by having this be a companion piece to a mobile game that they perpetually have struggled to make and ship. Like First Soldier and Ever Crisis were meant to be your bridge from Final Fantasy VII Remake to Rebirth, alongside the Zack game that we're gonna have to probably play at some point, but I don't want to talk about it. But anyways, so these games, with these 2 games, First Soldier and Ever Crisis, Square was basically signaling that the OG timeline, the timeline of Final Fantasy VII, was still doing well, doing nicely. Okay.
Mhm.
There's one major problem with this. Ever Crisis development has been absolutely cursed. I mean, it was originally slated for late 2022 to have a beta, not a full-fledged video game, a beta. That beta has since moved to summer of 2023. Even that's looking fuzzy because we haven't gotten any updates other than, yes, we're moving the beta by virtually 6 months. Now, what does this have to do with shutting down? What does this have to do? First Soldier. One, it shows that Nomura is in charge of these mobile games, and he had absolutely unfeasible, unrealistic expectations for these mobile games. He characterized Ever Crisis as being fully 3D rendered having fully 3D rendered moving portraits during dialogue sequences. And they had to exactly.
Yeah.
And just on a mobile game.
Expensive for your render pipeline there for no reason at all.
And it sounded too good to be true, and that hunch is true. So after the resounding success of Remake, basically what I suspect happens is Kitase and Nomura wanted to revive the compilation initiative that they created to make Advent Children make sense.
Oh boy, they're going to make a game called Revive, aren't they?
And they shot for the stars without thinking how to make a practical mobile game. And the impact of Ever Crisis having this problematic development can basically be broken down into two things. One, at some point, this game was the lone torch keeping the compilation initiative alive before the release of Reunion. It was doing a bad job of that. It did not meet the storytelling expectations that Nomura and Kitase have repeatedly said that they want out of anything connected with the compilation initiative, which is unfair to the developer of this game because they made a mobile game that was par for the course. Without Ever Crisis, First Soldier kind of lacked this companion piece to compensate for its lack of storytelling and world building. As a result, it is important to show or communicate that this was a dual effort between A-Team and Square Enix. And I'm pretty sure at some point Square Enix started pulling their mobile resources from First Soldier to salvage whatever there is related to Ever Crisis. And so that left A-Team to basically do all of Season 3. And sensing that the game would never pivot in the direction they wanted, or maybe A-Team assessed the entire situation that they were in and it's like, yeah, this is way too much work and we're not getting enough game. That might have motivated one of those two to pulling the plug. That's probably the answer. That's probably the answer in terms of like the pure money side of things from Square Enix perspective. However, there's another reason, right, Jeff?
Yeah.
Yes, Chris, there is another reason.
But before we discuss another reason, I think that means the timer for you to check the tea.
Okay. Okay, it's still warm. It's brackish. It's definitely darker. Oh, yeah. That's got a medicinal flavor to it. It's chamomile.
Yeah.
Have you had chamomile tea before?
No, I don't like flower-based teas.
That's my main potential fucking thoughts about medical benefits of chamomile aside. I just don't really enjoy the flavor of chamomile.
It definitely has that like woody aftertaste of like I'm biting into straw.
Yeah.
I think that's chamomile. Yeah,
I love licorice
so you
stuff, though. So give me some licorice tea all day. And again, I can
like
have a
the
rat's
apple
ass.
cider.
It's good for me.
I just like the
taste.
apple cider non-caffeine tea is good.
That sounds awesome.
All right, I'm gonna give this a 2.5. I still think it's weak.
Okay.
Congrats!
Right, so now
you made homeopathic.
Don't use chamomile tea. I've made homeopathic tea. Fucking
congratulations.
Support science.
Okay.
Hey Jeff, tell me about why another reason this game is very notable.
So why are you signaling me out? Yuji
Well,
Naka.
it seemed like
Yuji Naka is a man.
What did he do?
He's done a lot of stuff. So one of the things that Yuji Naka is famous for is being born. in 1965, which is weird to think that this is a person who's like exactly a year older than my parents. Just fucking insane. Yuji Naka joined a company called Service Games, which is abbreviated to Sega, in 1984, and has worked there for about 20 years in various capacities. Actually, a little over 20 years. The first game he actually released was called Girl's Garden, which is an SG-1000 game. It is cute. It is about a girl picking flowers to take them back to a boy in a house. The girl is avoiding being eaten by bears. The girl can distract bears with pots of honey. It is a cute little arcade game. It is fine. During this stretch of his life, he had kind of a friendly rivalry with the far more notable developer at the time named Yu Suzuki, the man who made both Outrun and also Space Harrier and also Shenmue, which is good.
Oh no.
They would go back and forth.
You made two good games and a bad game.
How many subscribers do we need to get to
None. I'll play it right now. I love that game. It's fucking weird and has problems. Those two would go back and forth of being like, oh, I worked 30 hours of overtime this week. And you'd go, well, I worked 35 hours. They were typical horrible Japanese like work culture lads.
But I slept under my desk for 5 hours and then started working again.
Yeah. He designed the 3D dungeon parts of Phantasy Star and like all of the pseudo-scalar game ports for the Sega Master System, a system that didn't have scaling. He also did the pseudo-scaling stuff for the Mega Drive launch title Super Thunderblade, a game which is very, very bad. I cannot emphasize this enough. Super Thunderblade is one of the worst games on the Mega Drive. You might know the Mega Drive as the Genesis. But he was a good programmer. Like he became like known as like a competent, like well-equipped programmer. He got handed the job of doing the Ghouls and Ghost port to the Mega Drive stroke Genesis, which was notable for being a very, very, very good conversion of a technically demanding game at the time. And he was interested in how they did sloped surfaces, basically, which was kind of a weird thing to do at the time. Like the notion that a character could run at like a 41-degree angle and how momentum got conserved. And in fiddling around with writing this, in assembly, he implemented a loop-de-loop in Ghouls and Ghosts, just screwing around. And in that process, just kind of getting interested in like loop-de-loops and momentum. You see where this is going. So he programmed, he did not design Sonic the Hedgehog, but he programmed and helped develop Sonic the Hedgehog and kind of became...
So he's the one who made Sonic the Hedgehog sexy.
So he did not responsible for the character design. That was Oshima. I forget his first name. Though I do have it written down in here somewhere else. Just his last name, Oshima. Anyway, Sonic the Hedgehog turned out very good, famously. But he left Sega after this because he was kind of wanted different challenges and got hired immediately thereafter by a man named Mark Cerny, the man who made Marble Madness and the PlayStation 4.
In the PlayStation 5.
Yeah, at a company called Sega Technical Institute in America, which is why Yuji Naka lived in the United States while he was developing Sonic 2 with these people in San Francisco. It was about this point in his career that he started developing a reputation for being something called an asshole. A chauvinist, dare I say, nationalist asshole. He was pretty rude to people. Like his strong preference was working with Japanese employees, which is really cool when you live in San Francisco, in America on a game. So, there's fun around the Sonic franchise. He returns to Japan in like 1995, formally founds Sonic Team within Sega, and then proceeded to not make a game in the Sonic franchise for the Sega Saturn, instead making Nights into Dreams, blah, blah, blah. Sega's console stuff dies in 2001. He kind of gets moved into an executive role in 2001. And he winds up alienating like Sega of America president Peter Moore, who was basically calling the Japanese office like pretty much daily around the time the Dreamcast was dying, just being like, no one fucking cares about this system over here. And Yuji Naka basically was just like, you're lying. These claims are false. You are trying to damage this company. This made Peter Moore very happy, so he left Sega after a certain point. He also...
But Jeff, isn't he the man who canceled the Dreamcast? He announced the death of the Dreamcast. It was him. It was him all along.
Yeah, he was the bad guy. Definitely not a cavalcade of horrible decisions made over like a decade.
It really is telling. I know that this is slightly off topic, that the minute that Sega pulls out of the console business, they post their first quarterly profit. Yeah. Like,
I mean, Iwao, the CEO of Sega, who died right around all these events, like, was hitting this button in like 1997 of just like, we should probably become a third party. Like the notion that Sega should like stop making consoles was like 5 years old by the time they stopped doing it internally. Anyway, he also alienated Yu Suzuki in this period as kind of an executive by more or less saying in like a meeting context that it would be really cool if Yu Suzuki could like start making good games again, which made Yu Suzuki feel really good. So much so that I think he left Sega shortly thereafter.
So this man who works in Sega,
yeah,
how did he? We were talking about The First Soldier. When did this become a Sega podcast?
Well,
surely
don't worry, it's about to stop because he left in 2006, wandered the wilderness for about a decade, making stuff like Let's Tap and Let's Catch for the Wii, as well as Rodeo the Sky Soldier, that successful product.
Oh boy, Rodeo the Sky Soldier.
In 2018, he joins Square and forms an internal division called the Balan Company, working alongside Sonic creator Oshima-san, who is at a company called Arzest. They develop and create a game called Balan Wonderland. Wonderworld? The Balan
Wonderworld.
Yep. Balan Wonderworld, which is very good, and you should play it, especially if you have PlayStation Plus on a PS4, because you already own it.
Yes.
This game being The First Soldier, gets announced in February 2021. This game launches November 17th, 2021. On October the 12th, 2022, the shutdown of this game was announced. And everyone goes, oh god, that thing. What a joke. It's probably just dying anyway. A month later, on November 17th, Yuji Naka is arrested by the Tokyo District Public Prosecutor's Office, and he is charged with violating Financial Instruments and Exchange Acts of 2006 in Japan. It was dug up that this was probably tied to him buying shares in a company called Aiming, which was specifically 10,000 shares of this company. They were the developers of like Dragon Quest Tact. So the charge of this was, which is a game that I don't think got released in the United States. I don't know how much money this actually totaled to, but my understanding is it wasn't like a significant amount of money at the time. Two other people within Square Enix internally were also caught up in this scheme. So that's the charge. So he's arrested November 17th and apparently released on his own recognizance. Weeks later, on December 7th, he is arrested a second time on a second set of charges for the same thing. This time, the accusation is that he purchased 144.7 million yen, which is the equivalent of 1.06 million US dollars at the time. So like over $1 million in American money, in A-Team, the developer of this game, right before this gets announced, which I don't know how that doesn't trip an alarm somewhere faster than this. I guess, these things move on a specific timeline. So
I mean, I feel like it's one where it trips the alarm and they go, let's see what this fucker does.
Yeah, and so
it's also important that as part of this probe, that multiple executive and employees in Square Enix were also charged with insider trading. I think one of the people that was named in the First Soldier side of things was a Square Enix executive by the name of Taisuke Sasaki, and he was not super high up on the totem pole, but he was associated with the Square Enix mobile division.
So, yeah, things to know about the Japanese justice system. Well, here's a thing to know about Japanese justice system. About 99% of the people who get charged with crimes wind up pleading guilty or being found guilty over there, which I think has two directions to it. I think one of that is they're very selective about when they charge people with crimes, especially of this magnitude. So that's, in some sense, like, good on the prosecution. And the other part is there's a lot of fun things you could say about Japanese culture and, like, assumption of guilt. And,
I forget if Japan is a court system where the burden of proof is on the defendant rather than the prosecution.
That I don't remember.
It could be it could be that as well.
So
Okay, well,
they shot their shot, probably knowing damn well that there's not really, like, a lot of wiggle room for here. And just in case you were like, well, surely the Sonic Man isn't this dumb, this game shut down January 11th, 2023. And earlier this month, in March 2023, in fact, I think it was like Thursday, if I recall, it basically came to light that he admitted to these insider trading charges. I don't know what the actual penalties for this are. I do know that at that scale, it's probably not just like a slap, right?
no.
Like,
No.
No, you probably go to
especially
jail.
considering it's the second charge of the same crime.
Yeah.
So this is very bad for Yuji Naka. And
also bad for the first soldier. So the thing that tipped him, the thing that he traded on, that was the knowledge of the insider trading, was who got the contract to make First
Exactly.
Soldier.
No,
Basically.
and also Dragon Quest Tact.
yeah, that was the other one.
Yeah. So First Soldier, this knowledge internal at Square, basically was what he traded. Some of it was what he traded on. And so this game and any of the other Square Enix executives who got caught up in this, I don't know if they would have shut it down simply to save face on the insider trading. But yeah, it's a bad look. And yeah, in many ways, I would say that the fact that Sonic Man went to jail because of First Soldier is the most interesting thing about First Soldier.
But again, to just highlight something, like, Naka had a very rocky and icy relationship. Square Enix probably signed that contract not knowing that there was a financial stake in it, A-Team, with this person that we literally just had a breakup with and who is literally still suing us for breach of contract. So Square Enix probably doesn't want anything to do with Yuji Naka.
Yes.
At all. Like, at all. And so where does this leave Final Fantasy First Soldier and its presumed short shelf life? Kind of like I've already said. Square Enix likely wanted to cut bait with anything connected to Yuji Naka. And that was not even crucial to their portfolio. Dragon Quest Tact probably got a pass because it had, despite having a far more overt connection to Naka, but that thing prints money. Okay.
And
it's not associated with an initiative connected to, and I hate to say this, the heart and soul of Square Enix today, Nomura and Katase.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't help that it was already this weird experiment and not the favored child in the mobile initiative to reintroduce Final Fantasy VII to this universal initiative. It did not help that it was co-developed with someone that disagreed with their highly ambitious storytelling aims. It did not help that two people in the division that approved this video game are now probably going to jail. So, you know, I truly am sorry for the people who put money into these mobile gacha games and then have nothing to show for it. But as I said at the end of my write-up for First Soldier, it's a goddamn miracle that this lasted more than a month if this was all going on.
Yeah. And, like, you know, there's plenty of, like, conspiracy-ish, like, who knew what, when did they know it kind of stuff internally within Square. Because, like, multiple people have been knocked on this, right?
Yeah.
And, like, who's dropping dimes on who, etc. Like, how far does this contagion go? Basically,
Yeah.
Because I don't love that I have this in me, but it doesn't take a lot for me to imagine that like plenty of folks involved administering Square Enix for the last 10 years are actually scuzzy and up to financial crimes. But considering like the direction the company is like gently easing into in terms of like NFT adjacent shit and metaverse adjacent shit. Because all of that is just carpet bagging carny garbage. As far as I'm concerned, spend your money how you want. I'm not touching any of that shit with a 10-foot pole. It's just running in a direction that I don't want to. I don't want fucking games playing in this space. Games can go there. I'm not going with them. I will continue to fucking play this physical copy of Xenogears I have and be totally fine. I don't think the shit actually infects Final Fantasy in a way that isn't outside of like a phone game that has fucking a token of Sephiroth, but the one from the goddamn Advent Children movie. And I can just happily avoid that.
No, it's short hair Sephiroth. It's short hair Sephiroth.
A token with geostigma on it. How cool would that be?
A geostigma token. No.
Like, just the assiest shit in the world. But like all of this just adds to like a yuck feeling around this company, which felt like it was, 7 Remake was a good moment, I think, for everyone at Square, because they launched a thing that people generally felt good about during and after its release, right? Like, I don't think people have like there hasn't had to be a bunch of like soul searching about Final Fantasy VII Remake, despite like how long it took, etc. Right? So to have this be like the next wave of stuff that comes out of there is Ever Crisis, a thing which like I would be curious to see what actually exists of that game. And then The First Soldier, which is tied up with, again, the Sonic Man doing crime. Just bad taste, right? Like makes you wonder like if the ship is actually righted at this company at all. And then you look at like, the sale of like their European stuff, like the current CEO being a metaverse adjacent person. And it starts making you feel ick again. Like it really fucking does. So who knows?
Yeah, that's the story of The First
and
Soldier.
it doesn't help that this game was primarily cited as a primary reason as to why the prosecution felt like they had a seal tight case.
Yeah.
Like this name was name dropped. This game and its developer. I feel like the evidence is like A-Team is a small team. They do mobile games because they're easy for them to do. So, but man, I have no idea how that studio even continues.
I choose to believe that this game was shut down so that it could be used as evidence.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's rank this thing. That's The First Soldier.
So we're going to rank this
The
crime
first one.
scene on this list.
Yep, let's rank this crime scene. Our first, so here's our current list of the Final Fantasy games. The definitive list of our ranking of fantasies. It goes as follows. Number 1 overall, Final Fantasy VI, followed by Final Fantasy IX, then 10, 7, 8, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy V, 12, the TCG, Lightning Returns, Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins, Final Fantasy I, Final Fantasy V Legend of the Crystals, the movie, Dissidia Opera Omnia, 10-2, 13-2, Advent Children, The Spirits Within, Kingsglaive Final Fantasy 15, Mobius Final Fantasy, A King's Tale Final Fantasy 15, Last Order Final Fantasy 7, Dad of Light, the TV series, Final Fantasy V Dear Friends, the special CD, Final Fantasy X-2 Last Mission, Final Fantasy 2, Final Fantasy 11, 13, and the worst piece of trash we've played with a Final Fantasy thing on it is not actually a game. It is Final Fantasy 6 Special Tracks, a completely worthless CD that is not worth your time. So
I'm going to propose we start in the middle.
Sure.
Okay. So, do we think that it is higher than Dissidia Opera Omnia?
No.
No. Okay. Do we think it's higher than 10-2?
No.
No.
13-2.
No.
No.
Advent Children?
No.
No. Spirits Within?
Probably not.
No.
Kingsglaive?
Now,
A side-scrolling beat 'em up.
Now
that's-
I feel like you could make
Kingslave's
it.
the movie. Kingslave's the film.
Yeah, sorry. Kingsglaive is the
I know
movie.
both of those Final Fantasy 15 products are very forgettable.
They are. Mobius Final Fantasy? I feel like ZP, you enjoyed that more than you enjoyed
I
this.
feel like Mobius was a far more coherent video game that even at least had a story.
Then King's Tale 15. It is a completely generic side-scrolling beat 'em up. Nothing exceptional, nothing terrible. It is A-okay.
It's a 2D beat 'em up with analog stick movement, and I don't like that.
I don't like it, but it's fine. Like it's
It got
fine.
its shit in and got its shit out in record time.
Last Order Final Fantasy 7.
Now I feel like you could
unessential
because
anime.
now we're starting to get into the stuff that is completely inessential, and I feel like like Last Order makes the very odd mistake of recontextualizing stuff from Final Fantasy VII and doing it incorrectly.
Yeah.
I think. So I like Last Order. I think Last Order is fine, but inessential. This game, though, I don't know. It sounds like this game was actually kind of good. It just was a bad mobile game. Like, if they had released this on Steam, I feel like we would have played it and enjoyed it.
I think that's a big what if. Like, I really do.
Yeah. I think that why this game didn't have the same treatment that Mobius Final Fantasy got with a Steam or PC release, we would be having a completely different conversation. But we don't.
Yeah, that doesn't exist. So
it doesn't exist, though.
We can't say that if this had proper controls, we would have liked it more, probably. And, it wouldn't have eaten up all of our data and our battery. But the only version they had was the version that did that. Last Order, I liked Out of Light. But, I mean, Mobius, like, it's right in this band here, I feel like. Kingsglaive, Mobius, A King's Tale, Last Order, Dad of Light. It's definitely better than Dear Friends, so that's
For
like
sure.
its floor. I feel like it's definitely better than Last Mission. So, like, yeah, its floor is right above Dear Friends.
I think as a Final Fantasy VII thing, I like Last Order more. There's not a lot of meat on that bone, but Hikari no Otosan just felt very cynical in a way that I don't feel very good about. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's just,
it's just a bad drama.
So I don't know. I think that's a fine place for it. But I could also hear it going like around Mobius too. Like I don't think
the Last Order,
it's just fundamentally not that bad is the thing. Like it's,
it was not a bad video game.
It sounds like it's an interesting like way to try to do a battle royale. If nothing, like it sounds competitive with PUBG or Fortnite in a way, or Apex. It's like Apex Legends, right? Like Apex has classes and stuff like that. Like it's at the very least another one of those that seemed well made. It just got prematurely killed because the Sonic Man had to go to jail. So I don't know. Do we think ZP? You played both Mobius and this. There's more game here than there is to Mobius, right?
No, I mean,
like Mobius had more story stuff going on that we found entertaining, but like the actual act of playing this game was more entertaining, right?
There's almost something. So, man, I mean, for me, Mobius was a clicker game. It was like a clicker.
Yes.
Where like autoplay, that type of stuff. Like I find clicker games totally fine. Maybe more so than the average person. But my feelings about clicker games and why I like them are very much on par with like Jeff Gerstmann's comments about the entire genre, which is sometimes you just need to derez and you want a little bit of some sort of interactive element while you just kind of let all of your worries melt away. And Mobius was very good at that. And it had enough of these mechanical rewards to where you always felt like you were moving forward, which is not an easy thing to do, nor is it something that many mobile game developers do, with many of them forcing you to pony up cash like immediately.
Okay, so do we think? So then we think it's below Mobius. Then this is where I'm here.
I would err towards below Mobius. Yeah. I know
I'm fine
that.
with that. I would.
Okay,
I would even maybe put it below
Tail.
King's Tail, too.
Okay, so then right above Last Order, then
What's above? What's below?
Hikari.
What's
Dad of Light?
I'm not going to put it below Dad of Light.
I agree. So it would either be directly above or below Last Order.
Let's put it below.
Below Last Order?
I mean,
Okay.
Last Order's asking price is much lower.
Okay, that's. I'm editing the document.
This is a very funny thing to have to write. Okay, so not First Order, First Soldier. Okay, so the new list is now Final Fantasy VI, then 9, then 10, then 7, then 8, then 7 Remake, 5, 12, the trading card game, Lightning Returns, Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy 1, Final Fantasy 5, Legend of the Crystals, Dissidia, Opera Omnia, Final Fantasy 10-2, 13-2, 7 Advent Children, The Spirits Within, Kingsglaive, FF15, Mobius, Final Fantasy, A King's Tale, Final Fantasy 15, Last Order, Final Fantasy 7, First Soldier, Final Fantasy 7, Dad of Light, Final Fantasy 5, Dear Friends, 10-2, Last Mission, Final Fantasy 2, 11, 13, and Final Fantasy 6 special tracks coming in the rear. And that does it. How do we feel, gentlemen?
Not in jail for insider trading. Yeah. I'll say that much.
Yeah. Hey, prison sucks. It's not particularly funny. It is only funny that the Sonic guy.
That's
did
true.
It. However,
Yes.
maybe also don't do explicit financial crimes. And I think like the victim here is ultimately, in some sense, I think A-Team, because like they, as far as we know, we're not party to any of this shit.
Mobile game.
Like
they made a competent video game. They did not realize that their stocks were being bought up as part of a pump and dump.
Yeah,
and like they lost the contract. Like they are not working on this game anymore because it was canceled. Like people who were doing good work are now out of work or had to move.
Yeah, now they're
for no reason of their own.
I don't know if like they've been able to like salvage things, but I can only assume that their reputation has, like, they're associated with being a pump and dump.
Yep. Not great. And that's The Last Soldier. Thank you so much, ZP.
Yeah, well, so I just wanted to talk to you guys about this business opportunity that I have. They're called essential oils, and, you know, they've got some really good innate medical benefits. They say that it can avert your risk or reduce your risk for cancer. Just keep it in mind. You know, I've got lemon balm and I've got lavender.
Thank you, Jeff.
The only balm I'm taking is this beer, and it is making me feel very good.
And Tiger Balm.
I actually, yes. If you sawed me open, ibuprofen would tumble out of the layers of Tiger Balm that hold my knees together. I am like 1/3 Tiger Balm.
And thank you, listeners. Reminder, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. That's our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. And if you're in a position to do so, please do donate to the National Network of Abortion Funds. Till next time, peace.
Break it down like this.